Welcome friends in the series of the lectures Crop Improvement First Kharif Crops in our YouTube channel SR Shinde and KR Patil sharing the knowledge of agriculture. Today's our topic is definition of PGR plant genetic resources, gene pool, then kinds of germplasm, genetic erosion, germplasm collection and conservation, types and methods. Let's see the topic plant genetic resources. The definition is it is the sum total of genes in a crop species is referred as a plant genetic resources. Then if we see the gene pool, it refers to a whole library of a different alleles of a species, and if we define the germplasm, it is the sum total of hereditary material, that is all the alleles of various genes present in a crop species and its wild relatives. So these three concepts, that is plant genetic resources, gene pool and germplasm, are similar concept. So it means it is a total biological material or total number of genes present in particular crop species, that is known as a plant genetic resources, gene pool or a germplasm. And the importance of this is the germplasm is a basic material for initiation of breeding program or a crop improvement program. Then important features of plant genetic resources. So these resources represents the entire variability or diversity in a crop species. Then it consists of land races, modern cultivars, absolute cultivars, breeding stock, breeding form and wild species of a cultivated crops. The germplasm includes both cultivated species and wild species or relatives of a crop plant. From which we can collect the germplasm is center of diversity, gene bank, gene sanctuaries, farmers field market and the stock of seed companies. Then the importance of this is it is important for launching a crop improvement program. Why it is important? Because the germplasm is represent the entire genetic variability and diversity of a species. So if we have that variability and diversity, then it is improvement for the finding out the beneficial characters in a crop improvement program. Then it may be indigenous or exotic cultivars. Then we see the kinds of germplasm. Germplasm consists of land races, advanced breeding material, absolute cultivars, wild form of cultivated species, modern cultivars, wild relatives and mutants. Now see one by one. First is the land races. So what is it? It is a nothing but a primitive cultivars which were selected and cultivated by the farmers for many generations without a systematic plant breeding efforts. Means the land races, we can say that most of the cultivars or most of the lines which are used by the farmer generation after generation without any systematic plant breeding efforts. So the importance or characters are the land races were not deliberately bred like a modern cultivars. So it can evolve under the subsistence agriculture, but it has a high genetic diversity which provides them a high degree of resistance to biotic and abiotic stresses. The land races have a broad genetic base. It is very important that it has a broad genetic base. Therefore, it represents the resistance of biotic and abiotic stresses. Again, it has a very wide adaptability. Then if we see the drawback, then the land races are less uniform and the low yielders. This concept, that is land races, are first collected and studied by N.I. Babilo in rice. The second type is absolute cultivars. Then what is it? It is the varieties developed by a systematic breeding efforts by the breeders, which were popular earlier and now have been replaced by the new varieties. Means we can say like when green revolution was takes place, so varieties at the time or the varieties before 10 years, that can be said as a absolute cultivars. Okay, that is replaced by new varieties, but it has also a very good very important because of in a breeding program. Then the absolute varieties have several desirable characters. It is important because they have the desirable characters and it can be constitute an important part of gene pool. If we see for example wheat varieties like K65, K68, then Mexican wheat varieties, in the varieties at the time of the green revolution, they can say as a or include as a absolute cultivars. Then the third is a modern cultivar. Now It is a currently cultivated high yielding varieties, means the varieties which are recently the farmer is using in his field. So these varieties, when they are high yielding, so they are referred as a modern cultivars. Again, the importance is the varieties have high yield potential and the uniformity also as compared to absolute varieties and the land races. Again, it constitutes a major part of working collection and extensively used in a parent material in the breeding program. Again, the modern cultivars are a good source of genes for yield and quality. Then fourth type is advanced breeding lines. So the word contains advanced. It means these are the pre-released plants or pre-released lines. We cannot say as a cultivar. So pre-released lines or a plant which have been developed by a plant breeder in modern by using the modern scientific breeding program or breeding knowledge. So they are known as advanced lines. This group includes the nearly homozygous lines. So if we see the uh, pure lines, so these pure lines are the purely homozygous. Okay, then again by using the biotechnological program like transgenic plants, then mutant line, whatever the bt varieties we are using, so these are advanced breeding lines. Then wild form of the cultivated species, then the name itself indicated the wild form of cultivated species, means whatever the species we are using nowadays, so their wild forms are again the important source of variation, or they are the important type of a germplasm, because due to this they have a high degree of genetic resistance to biotic and abiotic stresses, therefore they are using in a breeding program. Then six is the wild relatives. So the relatives are those naturally occurring plant species which have been common ancestry with the crop and can be crossed with the crop species as a referred to a wild relatives. Means what? These are the relatives of currently cultivated species and they can be crossed with the current cultivated species. So we can transfer the important or desirable characters in a cultivated species. So these are the importance of wild relatives. So it includes all other species like cross species by recent during their evolution. Both these groups are sources of valuable genes for biotic and abiotic stresses and important is for a quality. Now we'll see the gene pool classification system. The system of classification is given by Harlan and David in 1971. So gene pool consists of all the genes and their alleles present in all individuals which can hybridize with each other. So obviously this classification is directly based on the degree of hybridization or possibilities of hybridization. So based on the degrees of relationship, it is classified as primary gene pool, secondary gene pool and tertiary gene pool. The first one is a primary gene pool. It is also known as a gene pool 1, that is GP1. This gene pool in which the intermating it easy and it leads to the production of fertile hybrids. Means what? Whatever the cultivars, whatever the germplasm which comes under the primary gene pool, they are easily intermitted and it leads to the production of fertile hybrids. It includes the plants of same species or of closely related species which produce the completely fertile offsprings on intermating. So due to this quality or character, this material is very useful for a breeding program. Next type is a secondary gene pool, also called as a gene pool 2, that is GP2. So this genetic material which leads to partial fertility on crossing with GP1. When we cross the secondary gene pool with a GP1, that is primary gene pool, we get the partial fertility. It includes the plants that belongs to related species. Such material can be crossed with primary gene pool, but usually the hybrids are sterile and some of the progenies to some extent are fertile, but due to this, the transfer of genes from such material to primary gene pool is possible but very difficult. And in the third type is tertiary gene pool, that is GP3. So this is the genetic material which leads to production of sterile hybrids on crossing with a primary gene pool. So due to this what? It includes the material in which the can be crossed with a GP1 but the hybrids are sterile. The transfer of genes from such a material to primary gene pool is possible with the help of only a special techniques like gene transfer. Now we'll see the different activities related to germplasm. So there are 6 important activities which related to plant genetic resources. One is the exploration and collection, second is conservation, third one is the evaluation, fourth is documentation, fifth is the multiplication and distribution, and sixth one is the utilization. So we start from exploration and collection. So what is that? The exploration which refers to the collection trips. So collection of germplasm, and the collection which refers to the tapping of genetic diversity from the various sources and assembling the same at one place. So exploration is the collection trips and collection is a assimilation or assembling. Then the exploration and collection is a highly scientific process. It is not an easy process. So it requires some of the steps like source of collection, means from which we can collect the germplasm. So it is based on the social, agricultural, then ecological and soil pattern variation. Then the priority of collection. So as per the needs of the breeder. So which type of the germplasm required or needed to the breeder for the development of new plant varieties or for the improvement of plants. Okay. Then again, next is the agencies of collection. So it can be collected by the different agencies, collected from the students or colleges or research station, or individual the breeder can be collected. Okay. Then the method of collection. There are different methods of collection. Okay. Then method of sampling. So there are two methods of sampling. One is a random sampling and second is a selective sampling. And what is the amount of sample or sample size? So 50 to 100 plants and 50 seeds from each plant. It may be the hybrid, it may be the size of the collection or a size of a sample. So due to this, we can collect one sample can contain around 2500 about to 5000 seeds. The next activity is conservation. It is a very important activity because as we know the importance of germplasm, we have to conserve it. So conservation, which refers to the protection of genetic diversity of crop plants from genetic erosion. So in an evolution process or due to the interference of human being, okay, so the genetic erosion is occur, and again some of the agronomically faulty practices, if the farmer is applying, then again the character are vanished or genetic erosion is occur. So to avoid it, we have to conserve the germplasm. So how to conserve it? So there are two important types of conservation. One is a in situ conservation and second is a ex situ conservation. So we will see in details the in situ conservation. So it is conservation of germplasm under natural habitat, means where that germplasm is present we can conserve at that place or at its natural habitat. So it is called as a in situ conservation. It is achieved by the protecting the area from the human interferences, and in such area is called as a natural parks, biosphere reserves or gene sanctuaries. One is the very apex agency or institute, that is NBPGR, National Bureau of Plant Genetic Resources, which is situated at New Delhi, is making an attempt, which is successfully attempt to establish the gene sanctuaries in Meghalaya for citrus and in northeast regions for Musa, then for citrus, then Oryza, then Saccharum and Mangifera. So these are the different species of which the germplasms are very well conserved under this method in situ conservation. So what are the advantages? So by using the in situ conservation method, the it not only conserves the existing genetic diversity present in a population, but it also allows the evolution to continue. So due to the in situ conservation, the evolution process may be continued. And second, the risk associated with the ex situ conservation are not operative. So some of the climatic conditions are there, natural conditions, or to the non-technical person or any non-scientific method, the ex situ conservation is so much risky for that. So we can avoid this risk. Second is a disadvantage or demerits of the in situ conservation. As you know that it is under natural habitat, that's why uh, the each protected area will cover only a small portion of total diversity of crop species, because the diversity, if we calculate the diversity, it requires very much area. So next is the management of such areas also poses with several problems, because if we conserve some of the different forest species in natural parks or in gene sanctuaries, then so management is very difficult due to the human interferences. And last one is it is very costly method of germplasm conservation. Then to avoid this, the second type is ex situ conservation. So this conservation is away from its natural habitat. So we can conserve it in a lab, we can conserve in different form like seed or like germplasm form or like plasma form. Okay. Then if you see the advantages, it is very possible to preserve the genetic diversity, the entire genetic diversity of a crop species at one place. And second is the handling of germplasm is so easy and it is a very cheap method, but it requires some the initial investment is very high, but after that it is a cheap method. Next is on the basis of the storability, the seeds are classified by the Roberts in 1971, and the two major classifications are there. One is a orthodox seed, second is a recalcitrant seed. So what is orthodox seed? So this is a type in which the seed can be dried to low moisture content up to 5% and stored at a low temperature without losing their viability. So by decreasing moisture, they cannot lose their viability. So this type of seeds are known as a orthodox seeds. Most of the crop species like wheat, rice, corn, chickpea, cotton, sunflower, and most of the crop species in pulses in cruciferaceae family. So they are comes under a orthodox seed. And second is a recalcitrant seed. So in this type of seed, the viability of this group of seed is dropped drastically if their moisture content is reduced below 12 to 30%. And the example that seeds are from the forest and fruit trees, for example, citrus, coca, coffee, rubber, oil palm, mango, jackfruit, etc. So belong to this group, and such seeds present considerable difficulties in storage, and therefore the recalcitrant seed requires the in situ conservation. So friends, here is the end of our today's topic. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe my YouTube channel SR Shinde and KR Patil, sharing the knowledge of agriculture. Thank you very much.